Welcome to Conspiracy Theories and Cover-Ups. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode we investigate the mysterious death of John McAfee. Tech mogul, fugitive, truth-teller, or digital martyr, his story is as wild as it is unsettling. Was his apparent suicide in a Spanish prison the final act of a paranoid man, or the silencing of someone who knew too much? The deeper we look, the darker it gets. To understand the conspiracy surrounding John McAfee's death, we first need to understand the world he came from. Born in the United Kingdom in the year 1945 and raised in Virginia, McAfee's early life was marked by contrast. His father, an abusive alcoholic, died by suicide when John was only 15 years old. That event would shape his worldview and attitude toward authority for decades to come. McAfee earned a mathematics degree from Roanoke College and went on to work for major institutions like NASA, Xerox, and Lockheed Martin. By the 1980s, he had become a pioneer in the growing world of computer security. In the year 1987, he founded McAfee Associates and launched one of the first commercial antivirus software programs. That software made him a multi-millionaire, but also a household name. Despite his technical brilliance, McAfee's personal life was chaotic. He became increasingly erratic and paranoid, dabbling in hallucinogens, mysticism, and extreme lifestyle choices. After selling his stake in McAfee Associates, he drifted into a darker world of survivalist compounds, black ops security firms, and off-the-grid ventures that blurred the lines between genius and madness. By the early 2000s, he had become a vocal critic of government overreach, surveillance, and digital tyranny. He was convinced the US intelligence community was tracking his every move. He often spoke about encryption, privacy, and the dangers of centralized power. He built untraceable smartphones, promoted cryptocurrency, and claimed to be working on technology that could undermine the global surveillance apparatus. McAfee's transformation from cybersecurity entrepreneur to global fugitive began around 2012, when he fled Belize after being named a person of interest in the murder of his neighbor. Though never charged, McAfee claimed the government of Belize was corrupt and wanted him dead. His escape was dramatic. He faked a heart attack to avoid deportation and became a media spectacle, with journalists chasing him through jungles and across borders. From that point on, McAfee lived on the run. He bounced between countries, yachts, and safe houses. He claimed to possess incriminating information on powerful people and hinted at backdoor deals between corporations, governments, and intelligence agencies. He branded himself a whistleblower and freedom fighter, building a reputation as both a hero to privacy advocates and a lunatic to skeptics. The climate in which John McAfee operated, one of mass surveillance, big tech monopolies, and geopolitical tension, made his claims seem less outrageous with time. He warned of an impending war on truth, one in which those who defied the system would be erased. And in the end, that is exactly what many believe happened to him. John McAfee's final years were marked by escalating conflict with governments, intelligence agencies, and financial institutions. He was no longer just a tech pioneer or fugitive businessman. He had become a symbol of digital rebellion. But with that notoriety came enemies, and as his movements became more erratic, the list of those who might want him silenced grew longer. In 2017, McAfee publicly announced his involvement with several cryptocurrency ventures. He promoted altcoins, criticized central banks, and famously tweeted that he would eat his own genitalia on live television if Bitcoin did not reach a specific value by a certain date. Many saw this as a publicity stunt, but to others, it was a sign of deeper instability, or a calculated tactic to draw attention to his deeper warnings. By 2018, McAfee was claiming to be on the run again, this time from the Internal Revenue Service. He stated that he had not paid taxes in over 8 years and had no intention of ever doing so. He accused the United States government of corruption and claimed his tax resistance was an act of civil disobedience. He began traveling the world on a yacht, docking in places like Cuba and the Dominican Republic, issuing cryptic messages on social media and warning that powerful people were trying to destroy him. Throughout this time, McAfee made increasingly bold claims. He said he had collected terabytes of data implicating powerful elites in illegal activities. He hinted at having a so-called dead man's switch, a system that would automatically release damaging information to the public if anything happened to him. He said multiple attempts had been made on his life, and he feared he was being hunted. In one tweet, he even posted a photo of himself with a tattoo that read "whacked," spelling it WHACKD, and wrote that if he were ever found dead by suicide, it would not be by his own hand. He also released a short video stating that he had 21 terabytes of data, and if he was taken out, it would all be released to the world. The idea of the dead man's switch became central to many theories about his death. Was he bluffing to keep enemies at bay, or did he truly have leverage over the elite? In 2019, McAfee was briefly detained in the Dominican Republic for allegedly entering the country with a cache of firearms and military-grade equipment. He was released without charges, but the incident added to the image of a man constantly shadowed by danger. Then, in October of 2020, while attempting to board a flight in Spain, McAfee was arrested at the request of the United States government on charges of tax evasion. He was held in a Spanish prison while awaiting extradition. Even behind bars, McAfee remained vocal. Through intermediaries, he continued to tweet messages suggesting he was in good spirits and not suicidal. He insisted that if anything happened to him, it would be the work of those in power who feared what he knew. When he was found dead in his prison cell in June of 2021, just hours after Spain approved his extradition to the United States, the world was left with more questions than answers. The core claims fueling conspiracy theories around John McAfee's death stem from several key pieces of supposed evidence. First and most prominent was the infamous WHACKD tattoo he had placed on his right bicep in the year 2019. Along with the tattoo, he tweeted a photo of it with the message, "If I suicide myself, I didn't. I was whacked." This single phrase became a rallying cry for those who believed McAfee was in danger. Many took it as a clear warning that he feared being silenced and wanted the world to know he would never take his own life. A few weeks later, he claimed he had assembled a cache of incriminating documents, over 20 terabytes of data, allegedly implicating global intelligence agencies, banking conglomerates, and government officials in widespread corruption and illegal activity. He referred to this data dump repeatedly, claiming it was set to be automatically released if anything happened to him. While no such leak has ever materialized, the claim itself fed into the perception that McAfee had dangerous information someone might want buried. Another key point cited by believers is a series of social media messages made from McAfee's verified account while he was in custody. Several tweets stated that he was content, had friends in the prison system, and was not suicidal. In one post, dated October of 2020, he wrote, "I am content in here. I have friends, the food is good, all is well. Know that if I hang myself, a la Epstein, it will be no fault of mine." That specific comparison to Jeffrey Epstein, who also died by alleged suicide under suspicious circumstances, was not lost on conspiracy theorists. Many immediately drew parallels between the two cases. Additionally, shortly after his death, a strange post appeared on McAfee's Instagram account. It was a black image with a single letter, Q. It was quickly deleted, but screenshots spread rapidly. Some speculated this was a signal tied to the QAnon movement. Others believed it might have been a pre-programmed post from McAfee himself, a breadcrumb in a larger plan. No one ever confirmed who had access to the account at the time of the post, leaving room for endless speculation. Supporters also questioned the timing of McAfee's death. He died just hours after Spain approved his extradition to the United States. Some believe that timing is too convenient, arguing that someone might have moved to silence him before he could be brought into a US courtroom. Spanish authorities stated there were no signs of foul play, but no independent autopsy was released to the public. Taken together, the tattoo, the social media warnings, the claimed dead man's switch, the Q post, and the timing of his death, these pieces form the foundation of the theory that McAfee was not suicidal, and that his death may have been the result of an orchestrated cover-up. To assess the theory that John McAfee was murdered, we must examine the evidence with a critical eye. His WHAD tattoo and public statements certainly suggest he feared assassination. But was that fear justified, or was it the paranoia of a man whose life had long drifted beyond the edge of normalcy? First, the prison conditions. McAfee was being held at the Bryans II Penitentiary near Barcelona. The facility is known for relatively humane treatment compared to prisons in the United States. Spanish authorities stated that McAfee had access to health services, legal counsel, and was not being held in isolation. They claimed there was no indication of suicidal tendencies and that he had spoken with his lawyers hours before he was found dead. Spanish media also reported that McAfee had requested time with his wife shortly before his death. His legal team, however, was blindsided. McAfee's Spanish lawyer Javier Villalba told the press he believed John did not exhibit suicidal behavior. In Villalba's words, he had already prepared all the documentation for the appeal. According to Villalba, McAfee was preparing to fight the extradition, not surrender to it. The lawyer also expressed disbelief at the official version of events, saying McAfee seemed mentally stable and had not given up hope. The timing also invites scrutiny. McAfee died on June 23, 2021, only hours after the Spanish court approved his extradition to the United States. Was it despair at the ruling, or something more? Critics argue that a man who had faced constant danger for nearly a decade would not break down after a single court decision, especially when legal options remained. For conspiracy theorists, the idea that he died precisely at the moment when he could have become a liability to powerful interests is too coincidental. Then there is the question of the missing dead man's switch. McAfee repeatedly claimed that if he were killed, files would be released. No such leak occurred. Some say this proves he was bluffing. Others argue it means his kill switch was disabled or intercepted. There were rumors online that data was hidden in secret locations, embedded in blockchain transactions, or sent to anonymous servers. But no one has produced verifiable proof of these claims. There were also inconsistencies in the handling of his death. Early reports said he had hanged himself with bedsheets. Later reports suggested the cause was still under investigation. No full autopsy was ever publicly released. And while his death was ruled a suicide, his family, particularly his widow, Janice McAfee, refused to accept that conclusion. She demanded an independent investigation and stated that John was not suicidal. She also revealed that she had spoken to him shortly before his death, and he sounded upbeat. Taken as a whole, the available evidence leaves space for interpretation. It could point to suicide, brought on by despair, legal pressure, or declining health. But the timing, warnings, and lack of transparency provide enough ambiguity for another possibility: that John McAfee, a man who claimed to know too much, was silenced before he could say more. While the theory of assassination has gained traction, others argue that the pieces do not hold up under close examination. Skeptics point out that McAfee had a long history of exaggeration, paranoia, and erratic behavior. He thrived on chaos, often blending truth with fiction to manipulate public perception. In their view, the WHAD tattoo and his cryptic tweets were not warnings, but part of a larger performance, a final act in a long-running spectacle of self-mythology. John McAfee was no stranger to sensationalism. He frequently made outrageous claims, often with no follow-up or proof. He once claimed to have hacked the iPhone of the San Bernardino shooter using chewing gum and a paperclip. He also said he had been poisoned in an attempt on his life, though he provided no evidence. These kinds of stories became part of his personal brand, an anti-hero hacker who could not be controlled. Critics also point out the technical flaws in the dead man's switch theory. While McAfee claimed he had a 21-terabyte data dump ready to release upon his death, no such files have surfaced. Cybersecurity experts have noted that maintaining a working dead man's switch requires secure servers, fail-safe communication protocols, and trusted associates. Any break in that chain, such as arrest, account suspension, or loss of access, could compromise the system. If such a mechanism existed, it may have failed for mundane reasons, not due to a targeted conspiracy. Further, the mysterious Q post on McAfee's Instagram was never authenticated. Instagram removed the post shortly after it appeared, and the company declined to confirm whether McAfee had scheduled the post or if it was made by someone with access to his account. With no digital signature or timestamp available, its meaning remains speculative. Some believe it was a prank, others say it was a message, but there is no conclusive proof either way. Medical and legal authorities in Spain concluded that McAfee died by suicide. According to official reports, guards found him hanging in his cell with no signs of struggle or external interference. He left no note, and security footage reportedly showed no one entering or exiting his cell during the relevant time frame. For skeptics, these facts suggest a simple, tragic explanation. A 75-year-old man facing extradition and possible life in prison took his own life. They argue that McAfee had lost much of what once defined him. He was no longer the billionaire tech mogul, but a man in exile, constantly pursued and increasingly isolated. His health was deteriorating. He was no longer in control of his environment, no longer able to roam freely or command attention with stunts and provocations. For some, the idea that he chose death rather than lose all remaining autonomy makes more psychological sense than an elaborate assassination. In this interpretation, the conspiracy is not one of murder, but of self-deception. A man who warned the world of hidden dangers may have ultimately succumbed to his own fears, illusions, and the prison of his own legend. But even this more grounded narrative cannot erase the lingering questions or the fact that many still believe there was more to the story than the official record admits. The death of John McAfee did not just ignite debate about the circumstances surrounding his final moments. It also opened broader questions about the world he warned us about. Whether he was murdered, died by suicide, or engineered his own disappearance, McAfee's case represents a collision between digital freedom, state surveillance, and the growing power of information warfare. His story forces us to confront the uneasy relationship between technology, truth, and control in the 21st century. McAfee believed that privacy was the final frontier of freedom. He was among the first to sound the alarm about the erosion of digital rights. Years before mainstream awareness of mass surveillance programs like those revealed by Edward Snowden, McAfee was warning that governments and corporations were building tools to track, monitor, and influence every aspect of human life. He claimed that smartphones were the most effective spying devices ever created, and that social media was not a tool for connection, but a system of profiling and control. He also believed that the consolidation of digital power into the hands of a few massive corporations, such as Google, Facebook, and Amazon, posed a threat equal to or greater than government overreach. He described these platforms as digital weapons, capable of manipulating elections, shaping public opinion, and even altering reality itself through algorithmic censorship. To him, this was not theoretical. It was happening in real time, with users unaware that their thoughts and choices were being curated and directed. Whether one sees him as a prophet or a provocateur, McAfee's influence touched a growing population of people distrustful of centralized power. His message resonated with those who feared that the internet, once seen as a tool of liberation, had become a mechanism of subtle enslavement. And this belief that the public is being misled by narratives crafted by hidden elites lies at the core of many modern conspiracy theories. The idea that someone like McAfee could be silenced, if true, speaks to the danger of threatening entrenched systems. If untrue, it still reflects a deep societal anxiety, that truth is no longer something discovered, but something managed. That those who question authority, leak information, or challenge the status quo will be labelled dangerous, discredited, or quietly erased. McAfee's case also raises alarms about the transparency of international legal systems. His detention in Spain, based on tax charges in the United States, became a lightning rod for critics of global extradition agreements. Some saw it as a form of political punishment rather than legal justice. Others questioned why the US government pursued him so aggressively over financial charges, while other high-profile cases remained untouched. The broader implication is clear. McAfee may have been eccentric, volatile, or even paranoid, but the system's response to him reflected the very concerns he raised. A man who challenged digital control died in digital silence. Whether that silence was self-inflicted or imposed from the outside, it left behind a vacuum filled with suspicion, distrust, and the enduring fear that truth itself has become the ultimate casualty. The media's handling of John McAfee's story played a pivotal role in shaping public perception. From the moment of his arrest to the announcement of his death, mainstream outlets painted him in polarized terms, either as a paranoid libertarian fugitive or a fallen tech visionary. This binary portrayal left little room for complexity and failed to capture the deeper themes that defined his life and message. More importantly, it exposed how narratives can be selectively framed to fit the needs of power structures. In the hours following his death, headlines around the world quickly echoed the same phrase: John McAfee dies by apparent suicide. Most reports leaned heavily on the official narrative provided by Spanish authorities. Few questioned the timing. Fewer still mentioned the tattoo, the tweets, or the data dump McAfee had long claimed to possess. When they did, it was usually with a tone of skepticism or dismissal, reinforcing the idea that McAfee's warnings were the ravings of a troubled man, not potential leads for further investigation. Social media, however, told a different story. Within minutes, hashtags like #WHACakeD and #McAfee did not kill himself began trending. Independent journalists, crypto enthusiasts, and digital freedom advocates began sharing archived tweets, interviews, and old videos. Discussions erupted on platforms like Reddit, Telegram, and X, formerly known as Twitter, where thousands speculated about whether McAfee had truly died, or whether he had staged his own disappearance. The divide between the corporate media narrative and the public response was stark, highlighting a growing distrust in traditional news institutions. Some theorists pointed to the fact that McAfee's Instagram account was taken down shortly after his death. They argued that if his account had contained critical information or scheduled posts, its removal could have prevented the release of sensitive content. Others noted that access to McAfee's communications while in prison was limited, raising questions about who controlled his digital identity during those final days. Janice McAfee, his widow, became a central figure in the aftermath. Through interviews and social media posts, she repeatedly called for an independent investigation. She insisted that John was not suicidal and that he had been planning to appeal his extradition. Her public statements were largely ignored by major media outlets, but they resonated deeply within alternative circles. To many, her voice represented the silencing of a truth hidden behind legal bureaucracy and media apathy. Meanwhile, McAfee's legacy took on new meaning. Memes, quotes, and sound bites of his interviews began circulating widely. People revisited his speeches about privacy, encryption, and surveillance. Some began referring to him as a digital martyr, someone who died not just as a man but as a warning. A few fringe voices even speculated that McAfee was still alive, having faked his death to escape a system he had spent years fighting against. Regardless of where one stands on the spectrum of belief, the way McAfee's story was handled illustrates a broader cultural shift. Trust in media is fracturing. Audiences are no longer passive recipients of news. They are investigators, archivists, and commentators. And in that fractured landscape, stories like McAfee's do not end with a death certificate. They live on, reshaped by public memory, digital resistance, and the unrelenting search for answers the mainstream refuses to provide. As with many high-profile deaths shrouded in controversy, John McAfee's case has spawned an entire ecosystem of fringe theories and speculative interpretations that go far beyond the known facts. These theories may not all be grounded in evidence, but they reflect a larger cultural current, one that sees hidden hands behind every tragedy and patterns in every coincidence. At the center of this fringe speculation is the belief that McAfee was not only silenced, but that his life and death were part of a much larger plan. One of the more extreme claims is that McAfee had ties to intelligence networks and was either a rogue operative or an asset gone off script. Supporters of this theory point to his early career working at Lockheed Martin and his apparent access to advanced surveillance knowledge. They argue that McAfee's deep understanding of digital systems, encryption, and operational security made him a threat to both public and private intelligence structures. If he did possess damaging files, those files may have included proof of state-sponsored hacking, offshore money laundering, or even elite blackmail networks. Another speculative angle suggests that McAfee faked his own death. Proponents of this theory highlight the lack of public autopsy results, inconsistencies in official reports, and the strange timing of the events surrounding his extradition. They argue that someone with McAfee's resources, paranoia, and technical knowledge could have easily staged a death behind bars in a foreign country. The belief is that he is alive and living under a new identity, watching as his death fuels chaos, confusion, and the very kind of distrust he warned about. Adding to the mystery is the theory that the so-called 21-terabyte data bomb still exists and could yet be released. Some claim it is hidden in blockchain transactions, encrypted in dormant cryptocurrency wallets, or embedded in obscure digital archives. A few even suggest it will be triggered on a specific date or event. So far, no such release has occurred, but the absence of the files only fuels speculation that someone has taken steps to suppress it. Another curious point for theorists is McAfee's alleged connection to Epstein-style networks. He had tweeted cryptically about child trafficking, government blackmail, and global surveillance rings. Though he never offered direct evidence, his claims have been absorbed into wider conspiracies that suggest his knowledge or even proximity to such operations made him a liability. There are also those who view McAfee's death through an esoteric or symbolic lens. They interpret his public persona, tattoos, and warnings as part of a larger psychological operation, one meant to wake up the public, provoke thought, or trigger digital resistance. In this view, McAfee was less a man and more a myth in the making, playing a part in a theatre of truth designed to disrupt the official narrative. Though many of these theories are based on unverified claims, they illustrate how McAfee's legacy has evolved into something far bigger than himself. He has become a cipher, projected onto by those who see him as a hero, a warning, a trickster, or a casualty of forces that operate far beyond public view. Whether true or not, these theories tap into a powerful idea: that knowledge, when possessed by the wrong person, can be more dangerous than any weapon, and that in a world where truth is a battleground, simply knowing too much might be enough to sign your own death warrant. The story of John McAfee defies easy categorization. He was a tech pioneer, a provocateur, a fugitive, and a digital philosopher. His death in June of 2021 closed a chapter on a life that was as volatile as it was visionary, but it opened the floodgates to questions that remain unanswered. Whether viewed as a suicide, a silencing, or a carefully staged disappearance, McAfee's final act has become part of a broader narrative about power, control, and the blurred lines between fact and fiction in the digital age. What sets McAfee apart is not just the uncertainty around his death, but the legacy of suspicion he left behind. He turned his life into a living challenge to authority, a provocation aimed at governments, intelligence agencies, and tech monopolies. He did not just speak about surveillance, he claimed to expose it. He did not just warn of corruption, he insisted he had the files to prove it. And when he predicted that he would be whacked if he ever appeared to die by suicide, it ensured that his death, no matter the truth, would never be accepted at face value. This is the paradox of modern conspiracy culture, that the very act of questioning power can make someone dangerous, but it can also make them a target. McAfee knew this. He played into it. He used it to elevate his voice, but also to protect himself. Or perhaps, as some believe, to set the stage for a final illusion that would keep him alive in legend, if not in body. In many ways, McAfee became a symbol of what it means to live beyond the reach of the system and what it costs. Whether he was a martyr or a madman, his life was a mirror up to a world increasingly defined by surveillance, censorship, and the erasure of dissent. His story echoes a warning. That truth in a digital empire is both powerful and perilous. Even now, his name surfaces in forums, documentaries, and encrypted chat rooms. Some are still waiting for the dead man's switch to trigger. Others believe it already has, but in a way we cannot yet understand. But almost no one has forgotten him. That alone speaks volumes. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Conspiracy Theories and Cover-Ups. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to Conspiracy Theories Podcast on Spotify. Subscribe now.